You ever scroll through Instagram or Facebook and suddenly you feel like your life just doesn't measure up? Their vacations look better, their family looks happier, their success looks bigger, and suddenly you feel smaller. Well, in this video, I want to show you how the Bible can help us to break free from what we call comparison. And in this comparison culture that we live in, it's a thing that affects a lot of people. Because here's the thing, God never called you to live someone else's life. He called you to live your own life on purpose, with a purpose, and that purpose is what he made you for. I'll be real with you. I've fallen into this trap myself. I've compared my success to other people's success. I've compared my family to other people's families. Even my ministry, I've compared that to other people's. And every time I compared, I lost. Because you can't, there's a no-win proposition. You cannot win. Because comparison always steals your joy. And it's you sending a message to God that he's made a mistake in your life. And so it's like running a race, and you running a race, but you're looking from side to side the whole time. And you end up stumbling and you end up falling instead of running the race and staying in your lane and focusing on your race. And let's be honest, we all do it. We compare our kids to other people's kids, right? We compare the job that we have to other people's jobs, our looks, how we look. We compare our bank accounts, right? And even our faith. Who got more faith? Like, we compare all of that. And social media has turned comparison into a 24/7 scoreboard. No wonder many of us feel insecure and restless. But here's the truth. God speaks directly against comparison. In Galatians 4 and 5, it says, "Pay careful attention to your own work, for you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself with anyone else, for we each are responsible for our own conduct." That's Galatians 6, 4 through 5. And so what does that mean? Well, let's talk about it. Paul is writing to the believers in Galatia who were struggling with pride, they were struggling with division, and they were struggling with comparison, comparing themselves to each other. All of this is happening within the church in Galatia. Some people were boasting about the fact that they kept the law. Like, I've kept the law. Have you kept the law? Like, they were bragging about it. And other people felt inferior to that. And so what Paul is saying is, stop measuring yourselves by other people. Because God has given each believer their own assignment. Nobody has the same assignment. You may have the same title, but nobody is called to fulfill someone else's assignment. God is not looking for that. God is looking for you to fulfill your own assignment that he gave you. And so here's the thing. It says, that verse says, pay careful attention to your own work. Like, pay careful attention to what you're supposed to be doing, right? The Greek here, it means, when it says pay careful attention, what it means is to examine. It means to examine. It means to test, to approve. Like, pay careful attention to what you're supposed to be doing. Examine what you're supposed to be doing. See, Paul is urging believers to test their own life against God's call, not against someone else's progress. Test your life against God's call on your life, right? That's what you compare. You compare yourself to God's call on your life. If you're going to compare yourself to anything, definitely not another person. And so what is this saying? What is it saying? It's saying, stop grading your paper by looking at somebody else's test. Take your own test, and the grade that you get is for you. It's not for the other person. And he says, so be careful to pay attention to what you're doing. He said, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. You see, a lot of us are not satisfied because we are not paying attention to our own lives. And the reason why you're not satisfied is because you think they're supposed to look like somebody else's. And so the dissatisfaction that you feel, you're causing it on your own self because you're comparing yourself to other people. If you would just pay attention to what you're supposed to be doing and focus on yourself, you will get satisfaction out of what you're doing because you know that God created you specifically for the assignment. You know that wherever you are, God has specifically placed you there. And so the fulfillment doesn't come from winning against other people. It only comes from your faithfulness to what God has called you to do. And when you do that, you'll have satisfaction. Because it's like, an example is like a farmer does not get joy by comparing his crop size to another farmer's crop size. You don't compare your field to his field. You're supposed to get your joy from knowing that you plowed your field, that you sowed your seeds, and that you harvest what you were supposed to harvest. You did what you were supposed to do, and the reward that you get was a reward that's for you, not for anybody else. It doesn't matter the size of your reward. It doesn't matter the size of your paycheck. It's the size of your paycheck's for you. It ain't to be telling nobody else about it. It ain't to compare your paycheck to somebody else's paycheck. And so he says, you will get the satisfaction when you focus on what you're doing. Because we're too busy saying, oh, this little bitty thing, that's because you calling it little because you comparing it to somebody else. And it's only for you. And he said, you won't need to compare yourself to anybody else. See, this exposes the trap. Comparison is rooted in insecurity and pride. Because here's how it usually happens. Either you feel, it happens two ways. Either you feel less than when you compare yourself. You feel less than. You say, well, I'm not good enough. That's the first thing you do. And the second thing, or the other side of it, is you think that you're greater than somebody. Like you think you're better than somebody else. You'll say, well, at least I'm better than them. So that's it. So you either feel less than or like you better than. Both of those mentalities are toxic. You're not less than or better than anybody. You're just you and they're just them. So do you, let them do them. And when you focus on your own God-given path, comparison loses its grip in your life. And he says, for we each are responsible for our own conduct. You are only responsible for what you do. Every believer will have to give an account before God for their own lives. When you get ready to give an account to God, he's not going to ask you about somebody else's life. He's going to ask you about what you did with your life, because that's what he's concerned about. As far as you're concerned, is what did you do with your own life? He's not going to ask you about your brother, your sister, your aunt, your wife, your husband, your friends. He's not going to ask about any of that. He's going to ask you, what did you do with your life? What did you do with the gifts and the talents that I gave you? That's all he's looking for. He's not looking for nobody else, because they gotta answer those same questions. And so that's what it's gonna be. And so here, responsibility here means ownership. You taking ownership of your own life. You run your own race. You take responsibility for your own talents and your own obedience. You are only responsible for you. And so what does this look like today? Well, in social media, we compare likes and followers and success. But what Paul says here is that your faithfulness in the small, unseen things matter more than someone else's highlight reel. How does this show up in the workplace? Instead of comparing your salary or your promotion or your recognition to somebody else, God is calling you to focus on your integrity, your effort, your stewardship. And then even spiritually, stop comparing your prayer life, your ministry, or your gifts and your callings to other people, because everybody is the same. The Bible says that we are the body of Christ. One person is the head, one person is the foot, the leg, the arm. Like, we're all different. So stop comparing your ministry to somebody else's, your call to somebody else. We all have a unique assignment. And so what Galatians 6, 4 and 5 is telling us is to stay in your lane. run your own race, live your own assignment, and stop worrying about everybody else's. Why? Why do you need to focus on your own self and stop comparing yourself to other people? Because God said so. And Psalms 139:14 says, it says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. It says, this is what it says. It says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. So it tells you right there, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. He made you, specifically designed you, crafted you to be you. And so here's the thing, like, for a little bit of context on this verse, in Psalms 139, David is reflecting on God's intimate knowledge and God's involvement in his life. What he's speaking of is, he's speaking of God's omniscience, like God knows everything about him. He's speaking of God's omnipresence. God goes everywhere that you go. He's speaking of God's omnipotence. He has all power, so much power that he created him specifically to be him. So much power that he's created you specifically to be you. Nobody else has your fingerprint. Nobody else has your eyes. Nobody else has that. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And so verse 14, it sits right in the middle of David's meditation on how God formed him in his mother's womb. It's a declaration of awe and respect for God for how he created him. And so he says, God, he's telling God, the way you made me is marvelous. It's breathtaking. And so you got to appreciate God for how he made you, instead of looking at yourself and hating yourself because you don't look like somebody else. He says you are fearfully made. What is fearfully? Fearfully made. It means he made you with great respect and reverence and awe. Like you're fearfully made. And so imagine an artist painting every stroke with careful detail. That's how God crafted you. That's how God created you. He said you're wonderfully made. It means that you are distinct. You are set apart. You're unique. You're extraordinary. Nobody else is made like you. You see, God did not mass produce humanity. He custom designed every single person. And so you're not an accidental assembly line creation. You're a one of a kind masterpiece created by the God of the universe. And David says, marvelous is your work. What he's saying is, I'm your work, and marvelous is your work. I'm the work. You're the work. Marvelous is your work. Right? He says that God makes everything marvelous. And that includes me. That includes you. So what David is saying is, he's saying that he's not bragging on himself. He's bragging on God's craftsmanship, God's masterpiece. And then he says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And he said that my soul knows very well. That means that's a deeper knowledge. It's a soul level assurance. He says, my soul knows how well you made me. Right? And so what he's saying is, I don't just think that I'm valuable. I know that I'm valuable, and I know it deep in my soul and my spirit. I know that I'm a valuable person because God created me fearfully and wonderfully made. And so, but so many people don't look at themselves that way. And when you don't look at yourself that way, basically you're saying that God made a mistake. Basically, you're saying that God is lying about how he made you. But here's the thing. God is a God that cannot lie. And so if he said you're fearfully and wonderfully made, believe it. So how do you use this verse in your life? Well, here you can use it against insecurity. You see, culture tells us that we're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not rich enough. You're not successful enough. But this verse is saying that you already enough because God has made you intentionally. You can use this against comparison. If you are wonderfully made, and you are because God said you were, then you don't need to compare yourself to nobody else. You are already extraordinary. You're a original design made from God. And so you can use that when you think about comparing yourself to somebody else. How else can you use this verse? You can use it against shame. When you feel broken, when you feel shame, when you feel flawed, when you feel unworthy, you can go to this verse and know that God's design is marvelous. He said it's marvelous. And God does not make mistakes. It's like, think about a masterpiece painting like the Mona Lisa, for example, right? This is a perfect example. The Mona Lisa. You see, people don't argue over its worth. They don't argue over the worth of the painting by comparing it to another painting, because everybody knows the worth of the painting. And the reason why this is a perfect example is because some people think like back in that time, they thought the Mona Lisa was fine. Now I look at the Mona Lisa and I'm like, oh, I mean, she all right. I mean, she a woman, but I mean, they thought she was bad. And you look at the Mona Lisa today and I'm like, just a regular looking woman. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't matter what I think about it, because the designer designed it to be a masterpiece. And that's how God thinks about you. It don't matter what nobody else think. It don't matter if nobody else thinks you fine. God thinks you fine. So because you are his masterpiece. And so stop comparing yourself to other people. Your value comes from the person who made you. It comes from God. And so you are a masterpiece made from God. And God signed his name on that masterpiece. And so here's the thing. Comparison it's like eating junk food. It might feel good in the moment. I don't know why, but it might feel good in the moment, but it leaves you sick inside. But contentment with who God made you is like eating healthy food. It builds strength that lasts. And so, how do we break free from this? Well, the first thing we got to do is you have to shift your focus. Shift your focus. Look at what God gave you. Look at what God gave you. And whatever he gave you, he gave it to you to steward, for you to steward. So you have to shift your focus to what you got and not what nobody else has. The second thing you can do is this second thing is crucial, because this will help you. The second thing is celebrate other people. If you celebrate other people, it's kind of hard to compare yourself to them. If you celebrate them, because really when you compare yourself to other people, you kind of hating on them. But if you celebrate them, then you can't compare yourself to them, because you are celebrating the gift in them. You're celebrating the uniqueness in them. And so celebrate them, because that'll keep you from comparing yourself to them. And we're supposed to celebrate each other anyway, right? And then the last thing is to stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Run your own race, because God has given the race for you to run. Stop looking around. You'll probably have more success if you stop looking around and just focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And so here's my question for you. Where in your life are you constantly comparing yourself? Is it your job? Is it your looks? Is it your ministry? Like, where are you constantly comparing yourself? And that's a question that you got to answer and think about. And so the last thing I say is that we are not created to be a cheap copy of someone else. We were all designed to be an original masterpiece from God. And when you stop comparing yourself, you start living. You really start living. Because right now, if you comparing yourself to other people, you ain't living. You ain't really living. And so when you stop comparing yourself, you'll start living. And you'll start living a full life, an abundant life that Jesus died to give you. And so today, let's put down the scoreboard and pick up God's word, because in his eyes, you're not behind. You're right on time, and you're right where you're supposed to be. And so that's what I want to share with you today. I hope this encouraged you. I hope this blessed you. And if it did, share this with somebody. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.